practicing to beat somebody. We're practicing to beat everybody.
My expectation is we go out and dominate and create a nightmare and make people never want to play you again.
If you are a fan of another team and your coach is not out there doing everything that Kirby Smart is doing right now, you are already losing. You feel however you want to feel about that.
Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide for 4 quarters. They got to see us in our house for 4 quarters. They got to look us in the eye for 4. This is about us and our family and our house. This is about us. This is our mentality. We ain't backing down. We ain't running. Set a tone, send a message. This is our house. Physical toughness wins in football now. And if you in this room, you got it. If you come in here, you better believe in it. Because this physical toughness, it's what makes the difference. Elite focus. That's all I'm doing to the guy across from me. I'm fixing to whip his ass. Not in my box, not today. It's about us. It's about our family. We attack. You take that helmet and you strike them. And you strike them and you strike them. That's how you get respect.
Physically, I want to break them.
Welcome in, champions. Welcome in. Doesn't it feel good? It's been too long, but we've reclaimed our position right there at the top. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about this evening, because I believe that college football has a serious Georgia Bulldogs problem headed their way. That's what's on the docket tonight on the How About That Dogs cast. I got to tell you, friends, in the aftermath of a game like we had on Saturday, there's a lot of different ways you can feel. You can feel super excited, which is completely normal. You can feel, like you got a little get back. You can feel like, you're a bad mother, and that's okay too. Because when your boys walk out there and handle business the way the Dogs did, you earn the right to feel however you want to feel. And if those that don't like it have something to say about it, well, as long as you're being respectful, then you got no need to listen. They can like it, not like it, doesn't matter. Because they don't get to call the shots, not right now. We know what that's like. Last year, it didn't go the Dogs' way. And on this channel, the one thing you didn't hear me do was sit here and say, what if this, what if that, wait till next time. Nope. Georgia lost it. They gave it up. Not now. And if I'm going to be that kind of fan who's going to sit here after it doesn't go your way, and I'm not going to make excuses, or I'm not going to try to wish away what had happened, if I'm not going to do that, if I'm just going to accept the results for what they are, well, when my team comes out on top, I expect you to do the same. And if you aren't going to do the same, then you and I aren't going to see eye to eye very often. And you're just going to have to put up with whatever it is that we're going to say for the next little bit. Because for the next 365 days a year, it is unequivocal who runs the SEC. Same king as it ever was. Them Georgia Bulldogs. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. There are those out there, though, who maybe they're not feeling so good. And it's because of what they had to see in the run-up to it. That means I don't feel sorry for them in the least. Not a little bit. Not even maybe a little bit. Nope. If you're going to bump your gums and do all that talking before it happens, then I don't want to hear from you after the fact. No excuses, none of that stuff. So here's just one example of the kind of predicament that it gets you into when you do stuff like that.
Before we let you go, what's your score prediction?
20-16 horns.
20-16 horns. Matthew McConaughey.
Time to take the crown. Time to sit the head of the table, man. Thank y'all for having me.
You heard him. You heard him. He told you. Time to take the crown. Time to sit at the head of the table. No, friend. I like you, Matthew. We'd probably be fast friends. But not when it comes to what's happening between the white lines on the gridiron. No, you know where you are, and I know where I'm at, and that's okay. But when it don't go your way, it's got to sting. So it is what it is. These fellas made us all right on Saturday. And they went about it in just about the most difficult way possible. I talked a lot about the SEC championship game on Sunday after the brackets were revealed for the college football playoff, and we knew officially where everybody was going to be. But you can't see this picture often enough. Allow yourself to think for just a second everything that this team has had to go through this season. The revolving door of injuries and personnel that just haven't been there. And constantly that drumbeat of Georgia's not Georgia. Georgia's not going to be able to do it this time. Georgia looks like they're slipping. It's not the same team that Kirby Smart has had. No joke. It's not. And I sat right here and tried to help us all understand exactly why that was the case. Because of injuries, because of attrition, because of all those things that are out there, because of NIL, because of transfer portal, because 50% of your roster is new every year. You're going to have to grow and learn and develop, which is exactly what Kirby Smart told us was going to have to happen before the season ever started back at SEC Media Days. He says, we are playing the long game. It is about who can be there at the end, who can develop their young players and have them ready to go when it's time to compete for championships at the end of the year. And how many times, if you follow anything Georgia, not only this space, but other spaces, how many times have you heard Georgia players step to the microphone, players like Jalen Walker, Malachi Starks, those guys step up there and go, at Georgia, we play our best football at the end of the year. That's just what we do. It always seems to work out that way. And here we are, end of the year, and the boys are champions again. So when I talk about superstructure inside the program, when I talk about culture inside the program, that is what makes Georgia different. That is what this team is. But none of this happens in a vacuum. Georgia didn't go out there and steamroll Texas. Texas is a good football team. But they aren't Georgia. They want to be Georgia. Just like everybody else in the country wants to be Georgia. Georgia has the top program in college football. From where I sit, it's beyond dispute. That is not something that's up for debate. They might not have the best player at a certain position. They might not have the best team in a given year. I sat right here the other night and told you Kirby does not have the best team in college football this year from a talent roster perspective. It's a really good roster. It is very talented. But in terms of what we have known Georgia to be, consistency and all of those things, this is not Kirby's best squad. And yet, crown them. Champions. Because when things get hard, champions, our Georgia Bulldogs, the top program in college football, you revert back to the basics. And for these guys in this program, the basics are physicality and resilience and composure. That's what we saw on the field Saturday against the Texas Longhorns. That is exactly what Texas is not. That is exactly what Texas and Oregon and Ohio State and whoever you want to name wants to be right now. That doesn't guarantee you that you're going to win every game. That is not what that means. But what it does mean is that when it comes to the standard in college football today, that standard resides in Athens. That, and much more that we're about to get into, is why I believe the college football playoff and college football as a whole has a very serious Georgia Bulldogs problem on their hands moving forward, because not only do we know that this group is already championship caliber. It's because of the performance of guys like this. If Georgia were a quarterback-led team, then if you lose your number one quarterback, you are flat screwed, buddy. But that's not what Georgia is. Doesn't mean that the quarterback is not important. There are very few teams in college football that ask more of their quarterbacks than the University of Georgia does in the pro-style offense that they run. You have to know it frontwards, backwards, side to side. You have to know everybody's job, every check. And then you still have to physically be able to go do the thing. Gunnar Stockton had played virtually not at all this year. And I talked about that way back in April. I flatly said Georgia does not have a quarterback controversy. But what they have to do is figure out how to get Gunnar Stockton ready to play should they need him. And the way the season shook out, because of the way this team had to come together over the course of the year, those opportunities didn't really present themselves. But it's because of the system that he's in. It's because of the superstructure of the culture of the program that he's in. The competitive nature that the practices provide Georgia's players every day, that, as well as his own personal makeup, is what allowed Gunnar Stockton to go out there and perform the way he did Saturday, with the world watching. It wasn't just him, but it didn't have to be, because that's not what Georgia asks of their quarterbacks. They ask you to distribute the ball. They ask you to take care of it. They ask you to make good decisions. They ask you to lead your men. That's what Gunnar Stockton is. That's what he's always been. He just had a chance to show it on Saturday. Gunnar was not the starter for a reason. Carson Beck was the starter because he gave Georgia the best chance to win. And people began to question whether or not Beck was as talented as maybe everyone thought he was heading into the year. And I'm here to tell you, no. There was never a reason to doubt him. He's every bit as talented as we all thought he was coming in. But with all the moving pieces on this team this year, and maybe a little bit of, we know you're the guy, so go make the play crept in around Carson Beck this year. But think about it. When he played at his very best, it wasn't him making the plays. It was him distributing the ball. Think about that for a second. It was kind of like when he was not in his rhythm, it wasn't that he was any less the player than he ever was, but it was more of he was in the game, but not a part of the game. And once something happened in a game, whether it was the run at Tennessee or maybe, when he had to get beat around a little bit at Alabama before they kicked it into gear in the second half, he understood. He fell into that groove of, I am in the game. I am not just distributing the ball. I am now working in concert with my team to make this thing happen. Well, good thing for Gunnar is he didn't have a choice. You come in the middle of the game that you were losing, it's not on you to go out there and win it by yourself, because you just can't do that. You have to have help from your team, and everybody knew it. And therefore, they were able to lean back, fall in to that culture that they work in 365 days a year, lean on it, and rise to the occasion and play for each other. And when they did that, you see the result. Champions. But Gunnar wasn't alone. There were other guys that had magnificent performances that day. What about this dude? Hadn't played in 3 or 4 games, it felt like. And even when he did play, the last time we had seen him, he hadn't done much. Florida didn't get to do a lot because he got hurt. Ole Miss couldn't really go because he was still really banged up. He just rolls out there in a Kevlar vest and says, I'm about to go for, almost 100 yards and couple of scores. I'm going to walk the thing off in overtime because it mattered. This is one of those dudes that came to Georgia because he completely bought into what it was. He bought into that culture, to that superstructure. He's one of those dudes that's going over the cliff. He's going to follow Kirby and CARSON and whoever else were the established leaders that you want to point to on this team because he was that bought in. And when he had his opportunity, he cemented his legacy for the Georgia Bulldogs as a Longhorn killer. Dude ate them alive in 2 appearances against the Texas Longhorns. You know they don't want to see him again. And as much as they want to talk, I can't believe, honestly, that any of those Texas fans want to see Georgia again. Because it wasn't a fluke. At Texas, you won because we turned the ball over. Why did you turn the ball over? Because that defense was after you all night long. In Atlanta, you won because Quinn Ewers stinks. Really? He went for 350 yards. Is that bad? I didn't know that was bad. You only won because we missed 2 field goals. Really? That's part of the game. You want a cookie? That's how it goes. Why did you miss those field goals? Because they were made longer, because of the play of the defense, or because you couldn't hold your water and took penalties at crucial moments, because the fans in the Georgia state of Georgia here who were at the game made it a difficult environment for you to play in. These things all matter. Excuses are the bastion of losers. It didn't always go Georgia's way. It may not go Georgia's way in the future. What you will not hear me do is sit here and make excuses. I told you guys this is a coin flip game, and it was going to come down to everything that Georgia is. That culture, that superstructure, all of those things would make the difference. Your boy was right. Absolutely right. When it got tough, when it got hard, Texas is still learning how to win. For all the talk, for all the show, for all of the burnt orange and hook 'em and all that stuff, that's a team that until last year hadn't won anything for about a quarter century. They're fond of saying Texas is back. You know who don't have to say that? Georgia. Because Georgia's been here. It took them a while to break through to the ultimate goal. But we're talking about a program in Georgia that has multiple conference championships over the period that Texas has been dormant and lost in the wilderness. You're looking at a program in Georgia that averages 10 plus wins a year over the last 2 decades. And then Kirby Smart shows up, supercharges the whole thing, and now you've got the monster that is the Georgia Bulldog football program, the top program in college football, running the show right now. So anybody can say anything they want. Doesn't matter. Georgia is the standard. They are the top program in college football. And they're going to get better. This is just the beginning. For 2 straight years, Georgia has had issues with injuries and things like that. This team, and I don't know how comfortable I feel saying this, but I hear it a lot. People want to say this is Kirby's worst team since he took over in Athens. Worst doesn't sit right with me. But I will grant you that this is not his best squad because of all the stuff I've talked about. And all they did was go out there and win yet another SEC championship and get the overall number 2 seed in the college football playoff. Are you kidding me? That's what we're sitting on in Athens right here, and the future is very, very bright. So when we're talking about things like the transfer portal and NIL and all those sorts of things, I'm not losing sleep over any of that stuff. Because Kirby has shown time and time again that he is the best roster management head coach in college football right now. If you can look at Georgia as a player and honestly think to yourself, you know what, I'm going to better my situation by going somewhere else. If you choose to ignore all of the player development that occurs in Athens, if you choose to ignore the fact that over the last handful of years, they have put more players in the NFL draft than any other program, if you choose to ignore the wins that stack up so high you can't see them, if you choose to ignore all of the recent championships, all of the success, and you want to go somewhere else, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Good luck. Because it's like Kirby said, and it's like he told them in the locker room after the game on Saturday. If you don't want to be here, fare thee well. Because the people who choose to be Georgia Bulldogs and want to be in that locker room, that's the dudes they're going to develop. That's the dudes they're going to go fight with. That's the guys that they're going to go win with. That's not being, a braggart. That's not like speaking out of school. I'm not telling tales. I'm simply reflecting back all of the success that this program has had. Now, any and everything can change. That's the one consistent in this life. But with Kirby Smart as the head coach at the University of Georgia, I'm going to take my chances every day. Every season, every year. And I think the Dogs are going to end up being in pretty good shape most of the time. Now, we can't talk about what happened Saturday without addressing the Carson BECK situation. And he's injured, that much we know. But there's a lot that we don't know. Now, there are a lot of people that I trust who have said they believe that Carson BECK will not play for Georgia again this year. Okay, that's fine. Based on what we know and the statement that they have made, I completely understand where you're coming from with that. But I want to take a second and just think about what we actually know. As a journalist, a sports journalist for 26 plus years, you learn that not only is what is said important, but what is not said is important. And if you hadn't thought about it, remember who took the last snap of the SEC championship game? Carson BECK. He had to. He was forced into action because of what had happened with Gunnar Stockton. Carson knew when he came out at halftime that he wasn't going to play. Right? He knew that he was done. Or at least that's what we thought. If he knew that he was not going to play, why wouldn't he take off his stuff? Why wouldn't he change into, sweats, team gear, that kind of stuff? Maybe it was just because he was that invested in the game. There was no way he was going to walk off the field the final time, not wearing his armor, if you will. Fair enough. If that's all it is, I totally get it. But he didn't take it off. And then when he was needed at the end of the game, he trotted right back out there, snapped the ball, and in Trevor Etienne's words, made the perfect handoff on what wound up being the game-winning touchdown run. We saw, even at halftime, when they came back out, Carson went to the bench and got himself iced up. It was on his elbow, but he also had ice way up here on his shoulder. Now listen, all the scuttlebutt from inside the program would lead all of us to believe that Carson Beck is most likely done. I'm not here to start a rumor that that is not the case. I'm just spending time discussing the things that we know. Is Carson Beck going to be available to chase his own national championship? The honest truth is, none of us know. We know what we think. We know what we saw. And in terms of what we saw Carson Beck on the field at the end of the SEC championship game. And then he's sitting here with a little over 3 weeks from the time that game ended to the time Georgia plays again. What else do we know? We know that on Monday, there was a statement issued that said Beck suffered an elbow injury during Saturday's Southeastern Conference Championship game. He and his family are exploring treatment options, and there is no current timetable on his return. What is said matters, and what is not said also matters. And again, we're in a little bit of a murky area here, because if you look at the Brett Thorson announcement, it clearly states he is done for the year. Point blank, period. This statement does not say that. That what it does say is that Beck and his family are exploring treatment options. Treatment options could be surgery. Doesn't have to mean that, though. We know that he suffered an elbow injury. You put 2 and 2 together, you can start to see, okay, it's probably exactly what we think it is. But the one thing we don't know is the severity of that injury. And if you pair that part of it with the fact that they're exploring treatment options, and they did not say he is or is not out, I'm just saying, we don't know. What do I expect? I expect that Gunnar Stockton is going to take the ball and go out and do his best to defeat whoever the Dogs have to play in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day. That's what I expect. I expect that if necessary, Gunnar Stockton is going to continue to play for Georgia moving forward. But what I cannot know until we learn more officially is the extent of Carson Beck's elbow injury. So to be clear, I'm not telling you that I expect Carson Beck to come back. I don't. Everything says that he's done. And as a Georgia Bulldog fan, I personally feel like he probably should be. He should take care of his future, whatever he decides that is, whether that's to move on to the NFL or come back to Georgia. That's not the point. The point is, as a journalist, I have to look at what we know. That's what we know. Everything else is officially conjecture at this point. Although that conjecture might be well-informed and we can put 2 and 2 together and see the writing on the wall, that's fine. But that's not what the statement says. Like I said, I expect Gunnar Stockton to play in the Sugar Bowl, and if the Dogs win that game, I expect him to play in the next game. I think it's Gunnar Stockton's show from here on out. But we had to talk about it just a little bit. So speaking of the Sugar Bowl, on New Year's Day, from New Orleans, the Bulldogs will face either the Indiana Hoosiers or the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And either way you cut it, when Georgia rolls back into the Sugar Bowl, which, let's, as you can see here, be honest, you can't spell Sugar Bowl without UGA. There's going to be history made. Indiana is going to be on a stage like they have never been on before. Or we get to see echoes of some classic battles between Notre Dame and the Georgia Bulldogs, which we've seen in this very arena before. Any way you slice it, I'm looking forward to that game. But I am thankful that the Dogs have time to heal up, game plan, get ready, coach them up, regardless of whoever shows up there. Now, I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would expect that it's going to be Notre Dame in that game. And that'll be cool because, if you watch Notre Dame down the end of the stretch of the season there, that is a good-looking football team. And if you are the Georgia Bulldogs, that looks like a game that would be hard-fought, well-won. I do think Georgia matches up well with Notre Dame, but we'll have more to say about that in the future. If it turns out that it's Indiana, I think Georgia absolutely matches up well with Indiana. And regardless of whether it's Indiana or Notre Dame, I don't think either of those teams can rise to the level of physicality that Georgia's going to bring to the field in New Orleans. So it doesn't really matter, going back to the quarterback discussion for a second, who's taking snaps for Georgia, because that's not what Georgia's built around. They are built around that defense, physical style of play, not beating themselves. I think Georgia can be expected to do all of those things against whoever they might end up playing in the Sugar Bowl there. But we do have some good news. That is out in front of us, right? We don't yet know who Georgia's going to play officially, but we know we're going to be there, and I know I'm excited for it. But news never stops. And today we got, some really cool news from where I'm sitting.
Jalen Walker, the Salisbury, North Carolina linebacker for Georgia, Buckets Award finalist.
This is their top pass rusher. Man, is it fun to watch him when he is on the edge in his defense.
Cannot escape. They've got him again. Jalen Walker.
There's 11 again. How fired up is Jalen Walker leading this defense?
It's just been a nightmare so far for Texas.
Let's go!
Friends, Jalen Walker was announced as the Butkus Award winner today, giving Georgia their third Butkus Award-winning linebacker under Kirby Smart, as well as the third linebacker to win the award under the tutelage of Glenn Schumann. Be Roquan Smith, Nakobe Dean, and now Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker, it couldn't happen to a better dude. And when he decided he was going to be a Bulldog, to come to Athens from North Carolina, he was one of those guys. Every year you look at recruiting and you're like, which one of these guys do I really think is going to make an impact for Georgia? From the minute I became aware of who this young man was, I had super high hopes for him. And there were points along the way where I thought, I don't know if he's being utilized right. I wish I could, we'd see him here or there. And all the while, all you ever heard from Jalen was, me and the coaching staff are working together. We are figuring it out the best way to utilize my skill set. And then we step into year 3 for Jalen. And prior to the season, he, on one of the podcasts that's associated with the university, said, he's like, I want to be that bread man this year. I left so much money on the field last year. This is the year I want to go get it. And that's exactly what the young man did. He went out there, and every time Georgia needed him to lead, he led. Every time Georgia needed him to make a play, he made it. And like I said, it couldn't happen to a better young man. Just a phenomenal person, a phenomenal football player, a fantastic student athlete, and now a Butkus Award winner for life. That's one of the big ones. That's one of the ones that is kind of like the Heisman. People will talk about it forever. So when you look at Georgia and you wonder why they call it LBU, you wonder why they can stack #1 rated linebacker recruit on top of #1 rated linebacker recruit year after year after year. It's because of stuff like this. It's because of the production that is proven in Athens. So if you play linebacker and you don't come to Georgia, I mean, everybody makes their own choices, but I seriously have to question whether or not you're thinking about your future in the right way. So Jalen Walker, your 2024 Butkus Award winner. Outstanding news today out of Athens. So let's move this thing forward. As I said, college football has a serious Georgia Bulldogs problem. And it's just like Jalen showed on the field on Saturday, that famous Georgia whiteboard where the messages that need to be heard get scrawled out in a hurry at the end of games. The message on the board this week, we are the SEC. And the thing is, fam, he ain't lying. He ain't lying. Georgia, over the last handful of years, has just handled this league. Look back at the winning streaks. Look back at the titles. It's Georgia's world and everybody's living in it. Now, like I said, when you have talented teams that fight, doesn't always go your way. That's what happened last year against Alabama, and credit to them. But champions, well, you have to knock a champion out. You have to cut the head off the snake. You have to kill them and then kill them again, because they're not going to walk away from a challenge. That is who and what the Dogs are. And if you think, and at times it feels this way, that everybody out there is just rooting against Georgia, that may be true. But one thing that is absolutely true is that all eyes are on the Dogs. These numbers came out just today. The top 10 teams of the 24 season for average viewership per game, #1 right at the top, our Georgia Bulldogs, 8.6 viewers, 8.6 million viewers per game as an average. The nearest team, about 2 million back from that number. Ohio State's on that list. Alabama. Texas is on that list. And I shared the story with you guys earlier about how Texas fans came running saying, yes, that first game between Georgia and Texas was the highest rated game. Why is that? Because Texas was in it. I said, no, poor misinformed, ignorant individual. No. It's a big game because Georgia's in it, just like it has been for the last handful of years. That's the reality. These numbers back it up. Georgia played the toughest games. Alabama, Texas, in the SEC championship game again. You were on the marquee stage time after time after time. The one common denominator there, Georgia. So love them, or whether people are out there hate watching them because they want to see them lose. Makes no never mind. Georgia is America's team because when the Dogs are on the screen, people are watching. They are watching. They are paying attention. One of the things I'm fond of saying is you don't have to like it, but that's the truth. That's the reality. I don't see that changing anytime soon, especially when you look at what Kirby Smart is doing and should continue to do for the foreseeable future. Look at these numbers. SEC titles, national championships, top recruiting classes. And the thing is, friends, we are right in the middle of it all right now. The Dogs just finished with yet another top tier recruiting class. The transfer portal is going crazy right now. And all we're doing is muddling our way through winning another conference title and getting ready to go take our shot at another national championship. It's all happening right now. Life is good. I know Christmas is coming. I know things get a little hectic. But when you think that things are spinning out of control in your life and you're a Georgia Bulldogs fan, just sit back and remember. Great to be a Georgia Bulldog. It's a damn good day to be a Georgia Bulldog. I am lucky. Georgia born, by the grace of God, a Georgia Bulldog. Telling you, friends, this is the good stuff. And now we're getting ready to head down a road that nobody's ever been down before. And in some combination, we're going to see these games play out. But the college football playoffs start next weekend. Texas is going to be taking on Clemson. Now, we don't do stuff like betting lines and all that kind of jazz over here. But I can absolutely look at this game and say, shoot, do I think Texas is probably going to win? Yeah, I do. Do I think I can see a way how the Clemson Tigers pull off the upset? Absolutely, I do. We'll have more to say on that moving forward, as we will all of these games, because Tennessee has to go on the road to take on Ohio State. One of those classic matchups of where you've got a Southern team that has to go on the road in the depths of December. Oh my, what will we ever do? You see where I'm headed with this? Shoot. James Franklin at Penn State even came out on the selection show on Sunday and said, I really hope we have some snow for the game when SMU comes up here. It'll be interesting to see that Texas team play up here in Pennsylvania in the cold weather. Listen, I don't know how y'all feel, but if you got to step out there in front of God and everybody else and talk about how you need help from Mother Nature to defeat your opponent between the white lines, that's not the flex that you think it is. That's not a good look. And yet you got cats running around here bragging about it. I don't know. I wouldn't feel too great about it if I had to run out there and be like, I need all the help I can get because otherwise I can't beat this team. We'll see how they shake out. And then there's the game that's going to lead directly to the Bulldogs here on the bottom side of that bracket. Indiana and Notre Dame in an all-Indiana matchup, so they don't care about the weather. Newsflash, I don't care about the weather either. But Indiana and Notre Dame, everybody seems to think Notre Dame's probably going to win this thing. Like I said, I probably feel that same way. But I'm excited to see them do it. And I'm excited for the 12-team playoff as a whole because I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And I really do feel good about where Georgia is positioned moving forward in this thing because I think that they've got a shot to carry this thing forward and win it all. That's not me just sitting here as a Georgia fan saying that. Styles make fights. Matchups are king. But I've sat here all year and just tried to share a perspective about this Georgia Bulldogs football team that is coming to fruition right in front of us. This is not about one player. It is not about one superstar. It never has been. When you're a program like Georgia, there are superstars everywhere. They're all tremendous football players. But what is different? What separates them from every other team in the country? It's that superstructure. It's that culture. It is the competitive greatness, the competitive arrogance, if you want to look at it that way. That's what makes them different. Does it guarantee anything moving forward? No. But when I look at what this team is, what they will have to be as Gunnar Stockton steps in and takes over the role as QB1 for Georgia, they're going to have to be a physical football team. They're going to have to be a defensive football team. And they're going to have to be a team that doesn't beat themselves. Oh man, throw me in the briar patch. I think on some level, Kirby Smart kind of loves it. I think he low-key is like, yep, that's what I want. Doubt me. At your own peril. That's what he's saying. We'll see how it all plays out. They have to go play the games. All this is just talk. But I know that I feel really, really comfortable with where Georgia is right now as they get ready to embark on a journey that none of us has ever seen before. The Georgia Bulldogs, well, college football has a serious problem. They have a serious Georgia Bulldogs problem moving forward. This is arguably, for some, Kirby Smart's least team that he's had during his time in Athens. I don't like to use the word worst, but it is not the same kind of squad that rolled out there in 21 with, that entire starting defense being drafted into the NFL. It is not the same kind of squad that rolled out there in 2022 where you could visibly just look at them and go, yep, that's the best team in college football. That is not what this Georgia team is. In fact, this is a Georgia team that anyone and everyone, especially on a national level, has taken time to look at this year and call warts on. They're looking for a chink in the armor. And this year, those chinks have been easier than ever to see. But Kirby Smart, in what I think is quite possibly his best coaching job at the University of Georgia so far, has taken this team and elevated them to yet another SEC championship. And everything else that they want is in front of them. And when you look at the way the bracket lays out before them, I absolutely feel good about Georgia's opportunities to get back to and play for the national championship at the end of this thing in January. Now, there are really good football teams along the way. Thing is, Georgia's a really good football team too. They're a really good program. They know what it takes to get it done at the end of the day. They've been there. They are battle tested. And the lights will never be too bright. Not even for your backup quarterback that hasn't played any this year. You can't find a brighter stage than the SEC championship game in college football other than potentially the national championship game. And to see what Gunner was able to do when he went out on the field Saturday, buoyed by his teammates, has to make you feel good about the opportunities that lie ahead for this Georgia Bulldogs football team. I, for one, am super excited about what lays ahead for this team and for myself. And I know you guys are too. I'm looking forward to the games. I hope you enjoy them. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Take care of your friends, your families. Take care of each other. And go Dogs! All right, everybody. So let's stick around for overtime. We've got some stuff we can talk about here that I didn't even get to this evening. I do want to make mention, though, we have a podcast here. This is the video version here on YouTube. But if you enjoy what you heard here tonight, I see the numbers in here. There were like 200 people in here. That might be a record for this broadcast. So if you're telling your friends that there's good Georgia football content over here, thank you. Bring them back with you, because not only can you find us here on YouTube, but you can find us in audio format. And by the way, I don't know how you made your way over here tonight, but if you found us here on YouTube, I want to remind you that make sure you double check that you're subscribed to the channel, because it's amazing how many people find us because YouTube says, hey, check this out. But then you're not actually subscribed. So do yourself a favor, double check, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, turn on the alert bell so you don't miss anything we're doing. Because trust me, friends, we're just getting started. This is crazy moving forward. All we're going to be doing is talking college football. And when you're over here and all you know is that that's all we do is talk college football, we don't talk about the other stuff. I'm Go Dogs all day, 24/7, all the time. But I only discuss Georgia football on this channel. So if that's for you, be sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all the alerts, all the cool stuff that YouTube gives you the opportunity to do so that you don't miss anything, because we are trying to get to 10K, and you guys make that possible. So thank you so much for that. And there is another show here on the channel where we talk about SEC stuff. It's that SEC Powers. Then I would encourage you to consider becoming a member of the channel, which you can do for one little click. And I hope that we are worthy. That's all we ever strive to be, is worthy. So there you go. Thanks, Kirby's belt. I appreciate that. Sometimes this stuff, you roll the video and it does that. Yep, I got you. So thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. So let's see what I miss. I'm sure I said a lot there that y'all didn't hear. Sorry about that. So, like I said, overtime. So I see that you guys have been having a good time in the chat over here. There's no way I can ever get through all this stuff. So thank you so much for hanging in here with us. I hope y'all have had a good time. Thanks to our moderators over there for keeping everybody happy. I appreciate that. Tyler, hit that like button. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you very much. I see a lot of new names in here too, which is really cool. The good thing about our chat is it is super friendly and informative. So if you need something going on, like questions or whatever, just drop it in the chat, and they're usually pretty good about making sure that we get everything answered. Kirby's belt, man, that cough button has saved me the last couple of times I've been on here. I've been fighting a head cold. I got through it tonight pretty good, actually. So I feel pretty good about that. And I'm trying to get better so I can keep, making more stuff for you guys. So yeah, if anybody's got anything in particular, we can discuss that. But like I was saying about CARSON, I hope y'all don't take that the wrong way. Like I said, I wasn't trying to say that Carson Beck's going to be back or anything like that. I don't expect that at all. I expect that it's going to show moving forward. But my experience as, somebody who covers these kinds of things is that it's just what you say matters and what you don't say matters. And it could just be as simple as his family, guarding his privacy, which is completely fine. That's exactly what they should do. And everything says that, it looks like he's going to miss some serious time. Awesome. I mean, not awesome that he's missing time, because you never want to be without QB1, but awesome that if it takes time for him to get well and then move on, then there you go. I think that's what needs to happen. So I think Gunnar, it's his time. I think he's put in the work, and I think that he'll be good to go. Now, is he the same as Carson Beck? No, he's not. If he were, he would have been starting, but he is not the starter, right? He was number 2 for a reason. That doesn't mean he's not a great football player, and it doesn't mean that he can't lead Georgia to a national championship. It just means that the rest of the world has no idea who he is, and they don't know what Georgia's about to do. So that's all that means. Now, the difference with Carson and Gunnar clearly is experience. It is also, I don't know that I could say that it's he doesn't understand the offense the same or any of that. I don't think that at all. Honestly, my opinion is that he is very well versed in the offense. Submersion in the offense is exactly the reason that if Carson Beck had not been hurt and we just moved into spring practice and off-season workouts and all those kind of things, you would have heard me sit here and tell you that I expect Gunnar Stockton, barring some crazy change that we can't know, I would expect him to be QB1 by the time we got to the season next year. And that is with Puglisi, that is with Rashada, that is with all these other people already on campus, not to mention the freshmen that are coming in, because Gunnar has been in the game. He has been in the system. He knows it. So that is invaluable in the system that Kirby and Bobo run. It simply is. So he would have been my lead horse to be QB1 heading into next year. Now, that doesn't mean that, Kirby will not always try to improve his roster in any and every way possible at every position. He will. And if there were a quarterback out there that they thought would do that, they would bring that dude in. Because kind of like running back at the University of Georgia, they like to carry minimum 4 scholarship quarterbacks. And you usually have, counting walk-ons and stuff like that, maybe 6. So if you look at what they have right now, you have Puglisi, Stockton, Rashada, the freshman that's coming in this class as a mid-year. That would be your 4, scholarship quarterbacks. That doesn't mean that they wouldn't take another. They would take them in a heartbeat if they thought it made the roster better. So there you go. Let's see. Now this is an interesting question. Mike is asking about Carson's draft eligibility or his draft positioning, like what will happen. Here's the thing about that. Again, we don't know what that injury is. Okay. So you have 3 grades in a UCL injury, which is what is roundly considered to be the situation with Carson Beck. And it's either a sprain, right, which would be a grade 1. You have a grade 2, which is like a partial tear of that ligament, or you have a grade 3, which would be a complete tear where it pulls away from the bone. The grade 3, absolutely, you have to have, season-ending surgery. So the recovery from that is anywhere from 9 months to, 18 months. It depends on the individual, so on and so forth. But there are people who have tried to come back really fast. Now, when you come back, it doesn't mean that you are exactly the same always. In some instances, and I'm leaning on what I know about baseball right now from, again, 25 years of covering the sport, there are players who come back from the Tommy John injury in baseball, and they look at it and say, I never was able to reclaim what I had been prior to the injury as far as arm strength and things like that. On the flip side of that, there have been people who have come back from that injury and said, actually, I feel like I throw it better. I throw it harder, so on and so forth. You just can't know. So if it's just a bruise, if it's just a strain or a sprain or whatever word you want to put on it right there, if it's on the lower end of this injury, that's where the wiggle room happens in that statement. That's where you look at it and you're like, well, 4 to 6 weeks might be the kind of recovery you would need before you could play again. Even if that were the case, like I said, we're 3 weeks, a little over 3. At the time of the injury, we would be a little over 3 weeks away from the game. 4 to 6 weeks would be a safe window to think that you'd have to rest it. Well, you'd have 3 weeks, then you'd have another 8 days before their next game, which would be 4 weeks. Even if that were the injury, if you're Carson Beck, would you want to go out there and strain something that just was trying to heal, knowing that you have an NFL future in front of you? Probably not. And if we know anything about Kirby Smart, the one thing about him is that he will never put his players' health, he will never let that take a back seat to a team goal, if you see what I'm saying. Kirby will always prioritize his players' health. So even if it was a strain, even if it was Carson Beck saying, Coach, I'm ready to go in 4 weeks, and he was like, I want to go play this game, that's why I came back, yada, 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 I would have to believe that Kirby Smart would be like, no, we're good with Gunnar, Carson. I really don't want you to play. It's just my opinion. But I bet you that's how it would go down. Now, at that point, you're playing like essentially every other week, right? So you play on New Year's Day, and then you're going to play on the 9th, and then you're going to play on the 20th, I guess it would be. So at that point, are you really going to, if Georgia's winning and they've gotten there behind Gunner, are you really going to then pull that young man and put a quarterback in who's coming off injury and has been rusty? Doubtful. Highly doubtful. So that's just putting a bow on Georgia's season of Carson Beck. Like I said, I expect Gunner to be the guy moving forward. As to his draft stock, that's why I went through the injury thing. If it's just the 6-week injury and he could come back and play for Georgia this year, he wouldn't, right? Kirby wouldn't let him. So then you just rest and you go play, you go do the draft stuff. And they would check that elbow 6 ways from Sunday once they got, heading into the draft process. So at that point, as long as everything's structurally sound, then you just come back to who and what you thought Carson Beck was heading into the season and what you saw on tape during the season, right? Now, if you have to have surgery, just like in baseball, it is so commonplace now. The Tommy John surgery in baseball is as commonplace as an ACL surgery is or a tightrope surgery is in the NFL. It's just part of the business. It's baked into the cake, right? This is a thing that happens. So even if he had that kind of injury, I still think that whatever you thought Carson Beck was prior to the injury, like if you're a draft Nick and you're like, well, I would have taken him in the first round or whatever, then you're probably still going to feel that way after the fact. You just saw Brock Purdy go through this injury last year with the 49ers. You see him come out on the other side. It's the same thing. So if you loved Carson Beck, then you draft Carson Beck and you understand that he has to sit for a while, right? That's just the way it is. So honestly, I don't think it impacts his draft stock at all. I think whatever you thought he was, regardless of what happens with his injury, unless there's something none of us know about, right? So you have to put that caveat there. Unless you think, unless that's the case, whatever you thought of Carson Beck is who Carson Beck is, and you should still draft him that way, whatever you thought it was. That's my personal opinion. So I don't think that would be the case at all. I feel like this whole discussion is like fodder for a video. And see, you guys are always helpful with me as far as coming up with content ideas, but I hope that makes sense. And I hope that answered your question there with all that rambling, because you get into stuff like that. And William, that's for you, buddy. I hope I answered your question. So if I did, let me know. If I just rambled too much, let me know that too. That's fine. Let's see who's in here. Who we got? Kimberly's in here. Good to see you, Kim. Danny Harmon, we love the low key style. Sick'em, awesome. I'm not sure. I'm sure I missed something in the conversation there, but I'm all about that. Let's see. I'm just trying to catch up on comments here. I know that I'm missing stuff. I know I am, but I appreciate you guys being patient, hanging in here with me. Let's see. No, Sam, I see Sam making comments in here about Carson as a pro. I would be inclined to 100% agree with you, Sam. I think that that's exactly right, because once you become a professional and you've got other dudes out there who's, the way they pay for braces and loaf bread and everything else is to go be good at their job, and you've got a cat like Carson who's built to do that, you put those two things together, I think you end up in a pretty good spot. So I think Carson's going to be a really, really good pro. Again, that's just my opinion. Yeah, it's a big eye. Yeah, he does have another year of college if he wants it. So he has his COVID year still hanging out there. But honestly, I can't see that happening. I mean, again, I just laid out all the stuff about the injury and how it's viewed in the league and so on and so forth. So as long as we're not just missing something in terms of his injury, he can go and be the same dude he was going to be anyway in the NFL, honestly. So I can't see him wanting to come back. And he's already been at Georgia for 5 years. He doesn't feel like a Cam Rising to me. He definitely has that NFL future in front of him. And think about what would happen. And it's not Carson's concern, okay? If he wants to come back to Georgia, Kirby would probably want him to come back to Georgia, but he would also look at him and go, son, you've done everything you can do here. You need to go take advantage of your opportunity in the NFL. Again, that's my opinion on what I think Kirby would do, but pretty well informed. So that's the situation where if he did come back to Athens, though, think about what that would do in terms of that QB room. I mean, you definitely have some guys decide, okay, it's time for me to go. And that's not Carson's concern, right? That would be Georgia's concern. But I can't see that happening. But yes, he does have that year if he wanted it, for sure. And you're welcome, William. What's up, Dr. Gonzo? Good to see you, buddy. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. A little feedback there. Matt Ryan 2.0. I'll tell you what, man. When Matt Ryan was at BC, that dude was unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. And that's really a pretty good comp. I think he might be, well, I would believe that he's a little bit more athletic than Matt Ryan. Like, he can run it just a little bit better. But that's a pretty good comp right there. Big arm, very intelligent, understands how the game works. Great competitor. Yeah, that's pretty good right there. Pretty good right there. I agree. I don't know, Frankie. I see your dad's theory there about the spin on the ball. Carson can spin that sucker. So I that's a cool theory. It'll be interesting to see. If you want to, check back in after the fact and let me know. I will say this, though, and you can see this, especially if you go back and look at any of the tape on Gunner from when he was in high school, which is really the only kind of tape we have to work with. But when he goes down the field, don't get me wrong, Gunner does not lack arm strength, okay? He can make every throw. So that's not a thing. I'm not saying that at all. But when he throws the ball down the field, it has a very natural arc to his throw. His balls aren't flat. Think back to Matt Stafford. Think back to Carson last year. When he tried to throw the ball down the field, his balls sometimes would come out flat, which is a more difficult catch to make 30, 40 yards down the field. Whereas Gunner, just through his natural throwing motion and style, has a nicer arc, which makes it easier to catch oftentimes. So there could be something to that, in that when he throws the ball down the field, maybe you have a higher conversion rate simply because of the angle the ball comes into the receiver. So these are all splitting hairs, minuscule kind of things like inside the game sort of stuff. But I do see the difference in the way the two throw the ball. And there are things you can do to train up both of those things. Matt has learned to be a better deep ball thrower. Carson has learned to be a better deep ball thrower. But some people just naturally have it, right? You know, that style of throwing. And Gunner appears to be that kind of guy right there. Okay, I'm still catching up here. I appreciate you guys hanging out and chatting in the thing. And asking about Jalen, he's probably gone. I would assume Jalen's gone. But like I said in the show, prior to the season, he was like, man, I left so much on the table last year. I want to go cash all that in and go strike while the iron is hot. So, yeah, I think Jalen Walker is done whenever Georgia is done this year. I think Jalen's going to the NFL, and he absolutely should, in my opinion. Let's see. I can't find them right here in front of me, but I have seen you guys talking about the difference that Gunner's going to make in the run game for Georgia. And I agree with that 100% too, because it's going to allow the offense to do stuff that you can do with a more mobile quarterback, whether that's read option where you have a true dual threat. You can do a little bit of the quarterback power game where you make yourself right, especially in the high red zone. You get that extra hat and the blocker in the run game, which is a big deal when you get down there. And don't think for one second that you saw this in the game on Saturday. Gunner's going to go for it. He's going to go try to go get that if it's there to be gotten, right? Just like he did at the end of the game. And if they put him in position to run that kind of offense, like they did with Stetson Bennett a couple times, like against TCU, where you have a little bit of that quarterback where you pull the dudes out around for him, then that's something that Gunner can absolutely do. And when you have that dual threat in the run game as an option piece, that just puts so much more stress on a defense. Because then there's so much you can do off of that too in the passing game and other things. You can do boots, you can do slide protections, roll the pocket, change the launching point, all those things. And that none of that is new to Gunner. He did all of those things in a pro style offense in high school where they moved him. He is comfortable doing it. And if we don't see that from this offense moving forward, then that is a dereliction of duty, in my opinion, by Mike Bobo. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I fully expect Bobo to embrace this kid for who and what he is, because he knows him and has known him for years. So they are very well aware of what Gunner can do. And Kirby and all the defensive guys are going to be like, hey, Bobo, this is how you stress a defense. And they're going to tell them, the best way to utilize that skill set. So we are going to see all that, and it's going to be exciting. And it comes back to execution by the receivers, everybody else who's touching the ball. But I think they're going to give Gunner every opportunity to show what he can do. Let's see here. Still just scrolling over here, trying to get caught up. I appreciate you guys hanging in here. As always, I just strive to be worthy, man. And again, I want to encourage you that if you're not sure, double check, make sure you're subbed to the channel, because, this is all we do over here, man. Talk Georgia Bulldogs football. And this is overtime. Overtime is where the fun starts, is what some of the people who are here all the time, that's what they like to say. It doesn't get good till we get to overtime. So I appreciate you guys sticking around for a minute and letting us talk about some stuff. Yep, and Scotty's pointing out, Gunner broke all of Deshaun Watson's records, Trevor Lawrence's records when it comes to throwing the football. So don't think for 1 second that Gunner Stockton can't throw it. He certainly can. Certainly can. Let's see. Jaden Rashad or Puglisi has a chance to win that room. I don't, honestly. I think Gunner would be the guy, just because of his time in the system. If they were to step up and just flat out beat Gunner Stockton to win the job, then you as a Georgia Bulldog fan should be like crazy hype about that, because that means one of those two dudes has shown something that is special. And with Gunner already showing us that he's special, he's a winner, then if they unseated him for that title as QB1 heading into 25, then we would all rejoice, because that would mean that something really, really cool was happening in the quarterback room right there. I'll tell you what, Dylan Bell is an interesting question, because the cat has done everything Georgia has ever asked him to do for the betterment of the team, and I love him for it. He is a guy that, again, he's a running back naturally. He was a running back in high school. They've been trying to teach him to play wide receiver, and he's done a really good job. But what's more than that, he has learned every receiver position. If he could be allowed to just focus on one of those positions, then, he might be really, really, really good, because he's physical enough, he's fast enough, he's tall enough to do just anything you'd want a wide receiver to do. So I hope that he's one of those guys that you root for, and I really hope that he can start to catch a little shine. I thought this would be his year. I really did, but he's had issues this year with drops, like most of the wide receiver core has. He's had issues with putting the ball on the floor too. And he's also made some plays. So a big deal is going to be getting those dudes' heads right and getting them ready, because it's showtime now. It is where you need every possible weapon that you have. And I talked about the portal and how I don't lose much sleep over that. But there was good portal news for Georgia this week. I mean, Nitro Tuggle saying he was going to stick it out here in Athens. He's like, man, I'm not going anywhere. And it's like I said, why would you? Especially now that you've got Gunner, because again, it opens up so many other things for your offense. Yeah, you're still going to be a run-oriented offense, but when you start moving your quarterback and you allow your players to, scramble drill and do things like that down the field because you've got a mobile quarterback that's going to buy time and create opportunities off schedule, I'll tell you, man, Nitro is smooth. His releases are smooth. He is fast. He's got really good ball skills. It's like tantalizingly frustrating for all of us Bulldog fans who follow these cats like Nitro, like Sokovia White, who I really thought was going to get a little bit more run this year than he did. Guys like Anthony Evans, who has had issues with put the ball on the carpet. They're coming. They're coming. Ellis Robinson at corner, DeMello Jones at corner. They're coming, but they're having to grow and learn. And I cannot wait until they pop onto the scene. And Kirby has tried to tell us. He tried to tell me at SEC Media Days. He has tried to tell the fan base as a whole, if they will listen. These cats, we're playing the long game. We are playing the long game, which means they are developing these players, integrating them into the systems. And when you get down to the end here, not only if they are coming along the way you want them to, and you can trust them, then not only are they going to be playmakers just because of their natural ability, but the difference that they can make because they have those fresher legs, honestly, that than some of the other guys that have been playing every down might have, if you were leaning on them here at the end of the year. So I am just super duper excited about the running back room too, but the wide receiver room, the defensive back room, and obviously we know what we have going on at linebacker. So there is just so much of a reason to be excited about what's going on if you're a Bulldog. You know what I mean? Let's see. Hey, Michael. Coolest beard you've ever seen. That's what we're talking about. That's what we know good. Tyler, man, I appreciate you. I really do. Out here beating the drum for us, helping us out. If you have hit that thumbs up, thank y'all. I strive only to be worthy. That's for sure. Let's see. 225. Good to see you, friend. There it is. You work while you wait. Such a big deal. Such a big deal. I'm telling you, those dudes like DeMello Jones, they got a little bit of time this year. Not nearly as much as any of us would have loved, but DeMello Jones and Ellis Robinson, and then you've got KJ Bolden back there who's already playing. They're just playmakers, man. They are, especially DeMello, like just down south Georgia boys, just let them go play. You have to know, they have to learn enough to where you can trust them, right? But these dudes are playing on special teams. They're out there contributing to the team. And once they settle in and they can just go play football, it is going to be so much fun to watch as far as this group is concerned. Can y'all believe that even here in overtime, we were over 200 here on the stream tonight. So thank each and every one of you. If you shared the stream or if you hung out for a little while, thanks for that. But we're still sitting here at like 130. And there's only 86 likes. So I've got to keep working harder to do that, to hit that, to get those numbers up there to where they're closer together. But I'll do that. I'll continue to work harder. But thank you guys for hanging out with me for a while. See, and this is the point, Sam. And this is the hardest thing, I think, for people, just general fans, to get your head around, because Kirby will not play anybody until they're ready. It doesn't matter if you and I watch their high school tape. It doesn't matter, if we think they're going to be this or that. None of that matters. What matters is, can they trust you to play winning football? That's the phrase you hear from Kirby Smart. Can we trust you to play winning football? And that's what it comes down to. And they will not put you on the field until you earn their trust and show that you can do that consistently. So, and that doesn't mean, I'm not taking shots at anybody. I mean, everybody learns it at the speed at which you learn it, right? And who knows what's in front of you or behind you or, whatever on the depth chart. But they have that practice facility. They have the way they do things locked down tighter than Dick's hat band. Man, I'm telling you, they don't mess around over there with all that kind of stuff. And I mean, even this year, probably more so than I have ever heard before. I've heard Kirby say, and he was being respectful. He would talk to the media and on his pressers, which, by the way, we always break down all the pressers here. So again, another reason to subscribe to the channel. But Kirby say respectfully to the media, hey, I understand that you're asking that question, but I'd really rather not discuss what it is we're doing at practice. And what he means is just schematically, right? But as far as what the media gets to see and all that sort of stuff, it is nothing virtually. And so it's a public university. So I'm of two minds. Just as me on a soapbox here. I'm of two minds on this. This is a public university. I'm a graduate of this public university. Not that that matters, but I think about it that way, right? And so as a public university and the highest paid state employee in the state of Georgia, on one hand, I feel like Kirby Smart should open the doors to practice more than he does and give everybody a view of what it is they're doing, because people like me have a job to do, right? We have to be able to come on here and talk about this stuff in a way that we actually know something. But that's not what he does, man. And that's not what he's ever going to do. So people like me have to get over it. On the other hand, as a fan, just take off the other part, just as a fan, then yeah, I don't want him out there letting everybody know what we're doing. I mean, yeah, he's on the microphone yelling at folks. You can hear that if you walk by the practice facilities, but you obviously don't know what's going on. You can't see, So as a fan, I'm like, yeah, don't let anybody know anything, because I want every advantage I can get for my team. So again, I'm of two minds on the whole thing. I do believe that we deserve a little bit more transparency, and there is a middle ground that you could do that. But at the same time, I don't want anybody to know what we're doing. And one of the funniest troll jobs I think I've ever seen. And if you think, by the way, that Kirby Smart's not a troll, then you're not paying attention. Think about it. On the field in Texas at the end of the game, as he was giving his post-game interview, he finishes up, and as he's walking away, Kirby Smart says, "Go Dogs, go Dogs, go Dogs." I don't know if you even caught that. Not many people did. That was not by mistake. Remember, I played the Matthew McConaughey thing earlier? And what's Matthew famous for? All right, all right, all right. And Kirby Smart's like, "Go Dogs, go Dogs, go Dogs." And then a couple of years ago, Ohio State, and there was all that stuff, right? Remember Ohio State making excuses before the game even started. And he was sitting there like, they're filming our practices or whatever. It was all complete hogwash. There's never any truth to it, not a scintilla of truth to it. And what happens for the media availability? Georgia comes out there and does yoga. Everybody put their butts right on the ground and sat there and stretched and rolled around, for 30 minutes or whatever, and let them tape that. That right there, I'm telling you, man, Kirby is not going to give anything to anybody. It's all something that's held close to the vest. And, again, I'm of two minds. On one hand, I love it. On the other hand, I'm like, come on, Kirby. Damn. But that's the way it is, man. That's just the way it is. Let's see. Wayne saying if a guy's a 5-star, he has no business waiting. Well, isn't that up to him? It's up to him. Because if you don't do the work, you're not entitled to anything. Stars mean nothing. Zero. Nothing. And if you don't do the work to beat out the dude that's in front of you, then why should you play? And who said they're not playing? They're playing on special teams. And I don't know who you're talking about it specifically, but I'm just saying those cats, Justin Miller, JJA, this year he was playing on the defensive line along with other defensive linemen were playing. DeMelo Jones is playing on special teams. Ellis Robinson's playing on special teams. These dudes are contributing to a championship football team. So just because you were supposed to be somebody in high school means exactly nothing. So it's all about what you do once you arrive in Athens. No one is entitled to anything. Entitlement is the last thing you want to see in your football program. The very last thing. And it's like Kirby said, if Nitro was starter material, he'd be playing every snap. That's right. And that doesn't mean Nitro's a bad player. What it means is he had to learn how to do the things consistently, day over day over day. Remember, we see them for a couple of hours every Saturday. These coaches see them for literally thousands of reps over the season. In a week. A three-week span, you probably see 500 to 1,000 different snaps through various drills. They know what these cats can do, what they're capable of, who's consistent. You and I don't know. They know. So if they're not playing, there's a reason for it. Maybe they're just not as good as the dude in front of them. Could be. Or maybe they bust assignments. Or maybe they don't block consistently enough. Right? This is not a game for taking chances. Look at who the head coach is. Look at Kirby Smart. Watch him coach the game. Think back to when he called that timeout against Ohio State, right? To bust up the fake punt. Attention to detail. Every little thing matters. Think about what he did against Georgia Tech every time out during the OT period. Because everything matters. That dude is not going to put a cat on the field who is not consistently going to do his job. So that's just the reality of it. Just simply the reality. Okay. Exactly. Justin thought he was going to hand him the job. That was never going to happen. It will never happen that way. Let's see. Still just scrolling. Thanks you guys for chatting it up in here. This is awesome. Okay. All right, cool. All right, everybody. Well, we have done about a half hour at least of OT here. So I appreciate you guys sitting in here with me. Again, if you're new here, thanks so much for checking us out. I hope you'll stick around. If you're somebody who's been here for a long time and you like hanging out with us, thank you so much for coming on back. Don't forget, tell your friends, let them know we're over here because all we do is talk Georgia football. We're Go Dogs all the time, but I'm only talking about Georgia football, and it's all the different things that go with it. So if that's your cup of tea, then we are going to be serving it up hot right here, 365 every day. So that's us. You guys take care of yourselves. I'm going to get out of here. I got to go have some dinner. Woohoo! Y'all enjoy the games. Watch this space. New content coming as quickly as I can make it happen. And again, I appreciate you. Double check, make sure. It costs you nothing to sub. Double check, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And take care of yourselves until we see you again next time. And as always, Go Dogs!